Weather's about to get very active as we go throughout the next several days across a very large chunk of the United States. So in today's forecast, we're going to break down exactly where that active weather will be happening and where there will be severe weather, as we are going to continue to see many days of severe weather between now and all the way through the end of next week. So we're going to begin first with what's happening right now in the United States today to give you an idea of what's going to be happening. And this is actually the infrared imagery from earlier this morning. And notice there is a massive area of showers and thunderstorms from last night that were producing actually quite some large hail and wind. We ended up having a few tornado warnings back over in Colorado. We didn't go live yesterday because just nothing too concerning overall, very rural areas in those particular spots. But notice there's just a bulk of showers and thunderstorms from last night. A lot of these are starting to fizzle out this morning, with a little bit of some storm activity still remaining in both Oklahoma and as well as Texas. We also had some thunderstorms back over in southern Louisiana that produced some wind, a little bit of hail, and even some pretty heavy rainfall, and we had a lot of that as we went throughout yesterday and even into this morning. Notice over in the Northeast and as well as back through the Midwest, things are much quieter right now. We are dealing with a very quiet weather pattern, and I do think it's going to stay like that at least throughout the weekend. So good news there if you're back over on the East Coast or even back into the Midwest. Now for today, we're going to have another day of severe weather. Obviously we're going to have really basically from now until the end of June, we'll probably at least have some level of severe weather somewhere in the United States. Today's though is a little bit larger than you might expect, because we do have a large marginal threat of severe weather, which is the lowest risk on the scale, that goes anywhere from Iowa and as well as Minnesota all the way back down into Texas, where there will be a potential for some damaging winds and hail. Now back over in areas like West Texas, western Oklahoma, southwestern Kansas, and southeastern Colorado, pretty much the same area that we've been talking about for the last few days, is going to be dealing with another risk for severe weather as we continue to go into high plains madness season, which essentially means the high plains deals with a tons of severe weather anywhere from the end of May all the way throughout most of June. Now, with all that said, we do have a large slight risk that again is going to be mainly for the threat of large hail and damaging winds. We also have a small donut hole back over in Amarillo and Lubbock today for large to very large hail that could be as high as the size of baseballs. Now you might remember we actually had a DVD sized hail warning just west of Lubbock literally 2 days ago. We were live for that, and that was actually the first time ever that we've had a warning issued for DVD sized hail or greater. So really kind of crazy history there. It's surprising that that's never actually been warned for that before, even though it has actually happened. We've never had a warning that large before, so really crazy stuff. First time ever, which we've had about 7 or so, maybe about 10 grapefruit sized hail warnings, which is 4.5 inches in diameter or greater. Now the hail risk for today again is the greatest concern with those initial supercells that develop later today. That is where we'll be talking about large to very large hail that could be as high as apple-sized hail. Wouldn't even rule out an isolated storm near the size of softballs, or even maybe slightly larger than that. The wind threat not nearly as significant as what we dealt with the other day, but there will at least be some scattered damaging winds up to 70, maybe 75 miles per hour. Tornado risk is quite low today. Notice we have a 2% tornado risk for actually quite a large area. This goes anywhere from the Dallas-Fort Worth area back into southern Nebraska. Now again, don't panic about this. It is a very low risk overall. If there is anything that gets a little bit hairy today, we'll be live on the channel, so make sure that you're subscribed down below. The good news again is that it's a very low risk, and this is nothing like what we saw earlier this week. Now overall, tomorrow's threat does shift a bit further down to the south, and it also shifts a bit further to the west depending on where you are. Another large marginal threat that goes from the Denver, Colorado area back into Mississippi and Louisiana. We also have a slight risk, which is again a much more elevated risk across areas like Dallas-Fort Worth, southeastern Oklahoma, western Louisiana, and basically almost all of Texas is in this particular threat. It goes all the way through Houston. Main concern for tomorrow will again be damaging winds and as well as large hail. The main large hail threat will be back over near the Dallas-Fort Worth area and back through Abilene. Now the tornado risk, good news, we actually don't currently have much of a tornado risk. It'll be very low, at least low enough to the point where the Storm Prediction Center has not issued any area under a 2% risk. So really good news there. Let's hope it stays that way. It looks like as we go into Saturday, by the way, things are going to be a little bit quieter as well. So Friday probably going to be the last day of at least severe weather until Sunday. Saturday will probably have some sort of risk, but it looks low as of right now. Now today's severe weather setup is very typical for this time of the year, especially as we go into May May and even into June across areas like Texas. And it's really because of all the instability that we have. We just have a huge amount of instability across a large chunk of Texas, even back into parts of Oklahoma. And all this instability is like putting gasoline into a vehicle. It's what fuels storms. And we just have a ton of that both today and even into tomorrow, where we'll have plenty of showers and thunderstorms across a large chunk of the state. And also, in addition to this, we have a lot of moisture. Notice these dew points this afternoon. We're gonna have dew points skyrocketing even in the Dallas-Fort Worth area into the low to mid 70s, which is very buoyant. Now, a couple days ago, dew points were up near 80 degrees, so it was even more humid. It's a touch below that today overall for most of the state. Now, back over where there will be some storm initiation, most likely from some outflow boundaries, that will be happening with dew points in the 60s. That should be favorable for some large hailstorms and as well as damaging winds. There isn't a whole lot of shear today, so the tornado risk should stay on the lower side of things, but it's not zero as long as some storms can remain discreet. Now, today there's a couple of different scenarios that could play out. This is what it looks like this morning on the HRRR model with the 00Z model run, which is a little bit earlier this morning, really last night more than anything. Notice how it brings a line of showers and thunderstorms across the state of Oklahoma. I think this scenario is unlikely, but here's the deal. This is very hard to predict even 10 hours out because outflow boundaries are extremely difficult to predict anywhere beyond 6 hours out, and computer models do not do a great job at forecasting outflow driven events like this. So just keep that in mind. But if we do see storms this morning, it would be mostly a wind threat. By this afternoon, we'll be talking about storms across parts of eastern Oklahoma back into north central Texas, and then eventually some supercell initiation back over in west Texas around about 4 o'clock or so. This will eventually move east and perhaps produce a line of storms, which will be predominantly a wind threat after we go past about 8 o'clock or so tonight, with maybe an isolated tornado. Overnight tonight, those storms do start to push down to the south, and eventually by tomorrow morning, there will be some storms back down there in areas like, southeast Texas and as well southern Louisiana. And by Friday afternoon, things would stay dry in this particular scenario. With that said, the latest HRRR model run also shows a very similar scenario, but it's going to be very contingent on this cluster of storms as we go throughout the morning, re-intensifying and reorganizing with this particular batch of energy. So we're going to have to watch this very closely. It would arrive towards the DFW Metroplex during the early to mid-afternoon hours with mostly a wind and hail threat. Once we go into the evening, similar scenario where storms blow up over in West Texas, and they would eventually move east, and they would likely start to collapse as they get closer to DFW as we go closer to midnight. Now, again, this could also be a lot more isolated, and it might not even be this organized. It's a big question mark still. Again, outflow-driven events are still very hard to predict. And even this event here this morning, this is also very questionable. We'll have to basically play it hour by hour and kind of watch this closely. And we'll be going live if this does end up impacting DFW, and it is still a significant threat. So we'll be watching this again very closely as we go throughout the morning this morning. Back over in the Central Plains, things will be pretty active, but again, just sporadic showers and thunderstorms during the afternoon and evening tonight. And as we go into the overnight hours, things kind of simmer down. It would be mostly, again, just isolated hail and wind, nothing really far beyond that. I'm not really expecting much of a tornado risk. If we did get one, it would be back over in here, basically in western Kansas and as well as back into southern Nebraska. Now, beyond today, things do remain really active, especially down in South Texas. So let's bring you day by day and give you an idea of what's going to be happening across a large, vast majority of the United States. So for the rest of Thursday and Friday, showers are going to continue to develop across parts of the southern and central plains with plenty of thunderstorm activity. Once we eventually go into Saturday, those showers and storms will continue to erupt anywhere from the Midwest back into the Gulf Coast region. By the time we go into Sunday, showers and storms continue again in Texas, so things are really not going to be winding down anytime soon in Texas in particular. We'll be watching for some showers and storms as well to start to trickle into the upper and even central Midwest, where there will be a very low risk probably for some sort of severe weather for Sunday. By Monday, showers and storms again continuing across a large, vast majority of the southern and central plains back into the Midwest. By Tuesday into Wednesday, I do think we're going to get a more organized severe weather event where Tuesday and Wednesday look like they could be outbreaks of severe weather, especially back over in the Midwest. And we'll have more details on this in tomorrow's forecast, so make sure to subscribe to the channel. By the time we go into Wednesday into Thursday, things will start to move east towards the East Coast, and it looks beautiful as we go into next weekend, but as you know, things could definitely change between now and almost 10 days out from now. So stay tuned to the channel, and we'll keep you posted with the latest.